Welcome to the day after talking Duck sports. Man, we had a game on Saturday that was a little closer than I think what we'd like. But before we get into that, we need to talk about something else, and that is the officiating in the Big Ten right now is rivaling the officiating that we had in the Pac-12. And then I started to wonder something, and I think maybe I know why that the Big Ten is struggling so much. And it very well could be that the reason that they're struggling is because the Big Ten has been the most active conference in this space. It added a total of 16 Pac 12 officials, both on field and instant replay. So, let's talk about some things a little bit. Is they had the illegal shifts, or what they called delay of game penalty, when the D line shifts laterally, which you're allowed to do by rule, but these officiating crew screwed that up twice and basically changed how the defense was going to set, which is just not good altogether. But so the rule is you're allowed to do football moves when you're on the defensive line, which means you're allowed to shift laterally right or left to, assign to, so basically the idea of that, right, is you set up, the offense says, okay, we see where everybody is, this is the blocking scheme, blah blah blah, and then at the last second before the snap, the defense ships into different gaps and could affect the play, where it was going and stuff. That's the whole idea behind it. But the officiating crew incorrectly twice, once called Wisconsin for delay a game, and then later called Oregon for delay a game on that same penalty. But hey, at least they were consistent, even if they were consistently wrong, right? Okay. Now, I don't know what it was, but these officiating crews were not watching the edges because there was a lot. So especially on the drive where Wisconsin scored the touchdown, there was at least a minimum of 2 holding calls on the wide receiver at the top of the screen that they never called. They didn't call some other holdings when Wisconsin guys were basically tackling the Oregon defenders. And that kept that drive alive for them to score when that drive should have been paused by holding penalties, but they just didn't call it. And then later in the game, they were making some... So the call was during the play. I can't remember what the call was. So Wisconsin basically got the first down. They should have they had another like 20 yards or something, but the play was called back to the point of one of the fouls. It might have been like a block in the back or something like that. But the thing is it's not that call it wasn't a great call, but on top of that, when they instituted the call, they still gave Wisconsin another 13 yards, even though it should have been at the spot of the foul. Which just blows my mind, because you have all the replay and all that other stuff to at least get the spot right. And they didn't get that right either. Whatever. Then there was the Oregon chop block. And I don't know exactly what they saw, because it looks like he hit him right at the hip level. But I think what they were calling was because he was also hit high and hit low, which you're not allowed to do at the same time. I think that was probably what the call was supposed to be. But again, questionable. Like, this whole game was just filled with all kinds of questionable calls. Not to mention, when the Oregon threw the ball to the end zone, the guy. Well, okay, you know what? Whatever. We're not even going to talk about officiating anymore because it was so bad on both sides. It wasn't like it gave one team an advantage or not. It was just bad officiating. And this is just a microcosm of the whole season because the officiating has been completely atrocious all year long. But I'm wondering if these 16 Pac 12 officials that are in there, are just making it worse. Because I didn't expect the officiating to be this bad. I think all the officials need to go to some kind of school or something and need to pass a test because this is getting ridiculous. I mean, these guys didn't even know the rule, a basic rule. Like, I'm not an X's and O's guy. I can't tell you what the plays are called and all that other stuff. I'm just a fan. But come on. I know some of the most basic rules that allow the defense to shift, right? And it was just embarrassing. It's just embarrassing. Even the announcer was kind of calling them out. Anyway, okay, enough. We're going to move on because we could go on for days and days and days about how bad the officiating is overall. But we're going to move on. So, the AP poll came out, and Oregon is number 1. Ohio State is still number 2. Texas moves up to number 3. Penn State moves up to number 4. Indiana moves up to number 5. Notre Dame, number 6. Alabama moves up to number 7. Georgia moves up to number 8. Ole Miss, 9. And Miami pokes back in there at 10. The rest of the coaches poll, or the rest of the poll here is Tennessee at 11. SMU hanging out there in 12. Boise State, 13. Texas A&M, BYU, which lost. And that only leaves 2 undefeated teams left. Clemson, or 3 undefeated teams left. And then you have one of the 3 is Army. So, getting very curious, with Army being so close to Boise State and SMU, any of these teams lose here. I mean, Boise State and SMU and Army, who knows going to get that 5th slot there for the automatic high seed of the other conferences. So right now, it looks to be that you have, for the Big Ten, Oregon, Ohio State, or Indiana. And though Indiana and Ohio State play this coming weekend. So Oregon has a bye. They're off. Ohio State, Indiana play. And this game right here will be for the other team pretty much in the Big Ten game. Well, okay, so it's like this. Is Indiana, if they beat Ohio State, Indiana's in the Big Ten title game. If Indiana loses to Ohio State, then Ohio State is slotted to be the next team into the Big Ten title game. But Ohio State has to beat Michigan. If Ohio State loses to Michigan, then we go back to Indiana, and Indiana then gets the nod over Penn State, I believe. So, still a little bit convoluted for the second team in, but whatever team takes care of business next Saturday is probably likely the one in, and likely the number 1 seed in the overall playoff. If Ohio State wins against Oregon in the Big Ten title game, I believe Ohio State would be the number 1 seed. Oregon would drop to number 6. They would drop to the 6th seed, I think, is how that goes. Because you have Big 10, Big 12, SEC, ACC will be 1 through 4. Probably Boise State being number 5. and then you have Oregon, which would be number 6, getting that slot in there. But who's to say? That's why they play. Oregon still has another game, and the way they played against Wisconsin, that is no sure thing. So let's talk about why we're here. So Oregon goes to Camp Randall Stadium, and Oregon was a huge favorite in this game. I forgot how many points, but it was enough that a lot of people probably lost some money on this game. But that is neither here nor there because we know it. So I think Oregon was a 13.5 point favorite, 2 touchdown favorite. Oregon came in and the first drive looked very promising, and then things kind of came off the rails. So let's take a look at this here. All right. So you got Oregon with 19 first downs and Wisconsin with 15. Third down efficiency, Oregon was well below average, 5 of 15, and Wisconsin was even worse, 1 of 12. Fourth down efficiency, Oregon was 1 for 2. The one they missed was on a fake punt. Punter dove and was a yard short. Wisconsin was also 1 for 2. Rushing yards, Oregon had 136 rushing yards to Wisconsin's 130 rushing yards. Passing yards, Dylan passed the ball around, 218 to Wisconsin's 96. Total yards, 354 for Oregon, 226 for Wisconsin. Sacks were 2 and 2. Interceptions thrown, each of them had an interception. Wisconsin's was about the very, very end of the game, and Oregon's was at the very, very beginning of the game. Punting average, penalty yards. Again, Oregon was 7 penalties for 56 yards, but some of those penalties were hugely questionable. So I don't know. We won't really count this category for either team because it was just bad. And it was pretty even, 7 to 8, 55 yards, 56 yards. It was just bad officiating across, so the penalties just weren't really there. Fumbles lost, 1 for Wisconsin. So if you look at the statistics, you're like, man, Oregon must have won, 27 to 7, 24 to 7, or something like that. If you look at stats, but that's not the way this game played out. So Oregon, Wisconsin gets the ball. They win the coin toss and decide to take the ball first, which is their prerogative, but whatever. So Wisconsin gets the ball and they get nowhere. I don't think they gain any yards on the first 2 possessions, but definitely the first one they got stifled. Kick the ball to Oregon. Oregon moves right down the field, and then gets stunted down in the red zone. Oregon struggled mightily in the red zone this game. And so they kick a field goal. And so Oregon takes the lead 3-0. Wisconsin comes back down. And they again go basically 3 and out. And then Oregon comes all the way down. And Dylan Gabriel was just a little off on this game. He didn't play up to his ability or what we've seen throughout the year. I don't know if it's because it's a long season or what, but he just was off. And he throws the ball, I think it was about the 5-yard line to Justice Lowe, but it's behind him. And Justice reaches back and tips the ball. The ball goes up. Linebacker, I think it was linebacker, cornerback, safety, whoever. Somebody's back there, grabs the ball, gets the interception. Again, another red zone interception for Dylan Gabriel. But they don't do anything at the ball. Oregon comes back down and gets another field goal. and Oregon leads 6-0. You think, oh well, Oregon's just gonna run away with this game, but uh, Wisconsin gets the ball and they get a field goal, and then Oregon doesn't do anything with the ball, and then Wisconsin gets the ball back, and then this drive was like they just moved right down the field. It looked fairly easy. I felt early Oregon just kind of had no answer to the run game, which was a little surprising. I didn't expect to see Wisconsin run as well as they did on some of their drives. It was really hit and miss. All of a sudden, Wisconsin couldn't move the ball at all, and then all of a sudden they were getting big gash runs, just running right up the middle. It was very strange to watch and just really unnerving to watch Oregon struggle in this game. All right, let's take a look here. Dylan Gabriel goes 22 of 31, 218 yards, 7-yard average, and 1 interception. No TDs to account for. And just a little, I mean, those aren't bad numbers, but it just wasn't where Dylan Gabriel normally is. Normally, he's much sharper. There was a lot of throws that just weren't good. Not poor decision throws, just weren't good. And so, yeah, I don't know. Just not his best game. Just a little off, a little behind. But credit Wisconsin's defense. They really came after Oregon and really disrupted their game. No explosive plays other than the one to Stewart. So, yeah, I mean, how much of that was Dylan Gabriel's just being off versus Wisconsin really getting after Oregon? All right, Oregon rushing. Jordan James has 25 carries for 121 yards, 4.8 average, 1 TD, 14 long. Dylan Gabriel has 11 carries for 7 yards. A lot of those are being flushed out of the pocket. It was only a couple runs that he had that really got a lot of yards from. And one of those was a 22-yarder, so you can see the rest of them are probably partial sacks. Noah Whittington, 3 carries for 5 yards. He wasn't in the game much. I'm not sure what the deal with that. Ross James gets in there for 1 carry for 3 yards. Evan Stewart, 10 receptions for 92 yards, 9.2 average. He was looking really good early, and then everything kind of fell off. I think he had six or 7 receptions in the first half, and then after that, nothing. Terrence Ferguson, 3 catches, 52 yards. Jordan James, 2 catches, 25 yards. Gideon Sadiq, 1 for 24. Trayshawn Holden, 3 for 16. Gary Bryant, 1 for 6. Justice Lowe, 1 for 2. And Noah Whittington gets 1 catch for 1 yard. Just very, very uncharacteristic game for Oregon. I felt like the offense was there. It was just a little off. Just not quite as sharp as they needed to be. And I'm starting to wonder if this long season is starting to get to them a little bit, starting to wear down. I didn't see the speed I'm used to seeing from Oregon's receiver getting open. Stewart was open, I think maybe twice, wide open down the field for the long bomb, and hit one, missed one. Other than that, I didn't really see Oregon receivers getting open down deep. And that might again been Wisconsin really trying to stop Oregon's explosion plays. But hey, listen, there's the blueprint. Here's the blueprint to beat Oregon. Wisconsin did everything they had to do to beat Oregon. They just couldn't follow through in the end. Because if you want to beat Oregon, your job is to keep it close in the first and second quarter. If you can keep it close or get the lead in the first and second quarter, your chances to beat Oregon go up significantly. Because Oregon tends to struggle in the third quarter. They likely won't score or maybe might get a field goal. And then if you can take the lead into the fourth quarter, you have a chance. But you have to complete that chance and you have to make the plays to win. But in my opinion, Wisconsin followed that blueprint game plan to a T until the very end. They just couldn't quite stop Oregon between, some people say, questionable reffing decisions, which we already covered talking about. It was just horrible on both sides. To Oregon, getting in one of those grooves and moving the ball with Jordan James and just kind of moving it down the field and stuff like that. So I don't know. Oregon goes into a bye week. I think they have a lot of things to work on. You have the Huskies coming down to Eugene, and the Huskies, I'll tell you, they will bring their A game and some, because they would want nothing better than to beat number one Oregon and just take them off of that undefeated season. Oregon has already clinched their spot in the Big Ten title game. A loss to the Huskies does nothing. Oregon still gets in to the conference title game there. But yeah, so super uncharacteristic, but Oregon finds a way to get the win, and that's what you have to do. And let's be honest, going undefeated doesn't happen that often. Going undefeated in the Big Ten, probably even less. Oregon, they've only been 11-0 twice in their history. 10-0 three times, 11-0 twice only. So they still have some chances to make some records. I think 12-0 will be a one and only record for Oregon. No, it'd be so if they can win this next game, they'll be tied with their only other time being undefeated. And if they can win an additional game in the Big Ten Conference title game, going 13-0 would be a record for Oregon. But that remains to be seen. Oregon has a bye week this coming weekend. And then Oregon plays the Huskies at home. I believe that game is early. Let's see, 11, I think that game was. So that game starts... Oh, maybe they didn't call the time. I thought it was an early 11. I thought I saw it was an early 11 o'clock game. Maybe not. But with that, I don't know what else is said, but there has to be something done with the referees. This is just getting really bad. Oregon suffered a bunch of these poorly ref games. They suffered through this one. At least on this one, I thought it was fairly even on both sides. A lot of bad calls, just both sides throughout the game. But the fact that we're talking about poor referees, it's really bad, because they shouldn't be that much of a factor in a game, and it seems like it's just becoming more and more and more of an issue. Something needs to be something needs to be done, something needs to be said, and I think maybe the referees need to start having media time after the game and start explaining what the hell they were doing. Because I would love to see the explanation of the rule when somebody says, hey, that's allowed, right? You guys fucked up. And they're like, I would love to see that interview, but I don't know. Anyway, we're out of here. Oregon Ducks have a basketball game coming up today, so don't forget to catch that. But with now, we are out of here. Much love all. We will catch you next time.